Did you know that one of the most revered and revolutionary painters in the history of Western art was a wanted murderer? That the man who painted the most sublime, divine moments of spiritual revelation was also a brawler, a swordsman with a rap sheet as long as his arm, who spent the last years of his life on the run, desperate for a pardon that came just a little too late. This isn't a contradiction. It is the very heart of the man. To understand the art of Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio, you must first understand the violent, passionate, and brilliant chaos of his life. His paintings are not just images, they are confessions. Our story begins not in the grandeur of Rome, but in the Lombardy region of northern Italy. Born in 1571, the young Caravaggio was trained in Milan, in a school of art that valued naturalism, painting things as they truly were, not as some idealized perfect version. This was the first seed of his rebellion. At the time, the high art of Rome was dominated by mannerism, a style of elegant, elongated figures in graceful but often artificial poses. It was beautiful, but it was a fantasy. Caravaggio wasn't interested in fantasy. He was interested in the truth, no matter how dirty or uncomfortable. When he arrived in Rome in his early 20s, he was just another starving artist, a young man with a chip on his shoulder and a transcendent talent. He hustled, painting still lifes of fruit and flowers for other, more established artists. But even here, in a simple basket of fruit, you can see the Caravaggio difference. He doesn't paint perfect, glossy fruit. He paints a piece with a wormhole, a leaf that is starting to wither and die. He understood even then that there is a dark beauty in decay, that life and death are intertwined in every moment. His big break came when he caught the eye of the powerful Cardinal Francesco Maria del Monte, a man of refined taste and a love for the bold and new. The Cardinal took Caravaggio into his household, giving him lodging, board, and, most importantly, commissions. It was here, in the Palazzo Madama, that Caravaggio began to truly develop his signature style. He abandoned the bright, even lighting of the Renaissance. Instead, he plunged his canvases into darkness, using a dramatic, theatrical lighting effect we now call tenebrism, an extreme form of chiaroscuro, the contrast between light and dark. It was as if his scenes were not happening in the light of day, but in a cellar, illuminated by a single harsh light source from above. This wasn't just a stylistic choice, it was a metaphor. Light, for Caravaggio, was divine. It was grace, revelation, the touch of God. And it didn't shine on perfect saints in pristine temples. It slashed through the darkness to find sinners in taverns, tax collectors in their counting houses, and paupers in their hovels. He also insisted on using real people as his models, not idealized classical figures, but the men and women he saw every day in the streets and taverns of Rome. He painted saints with dirty fingernails and wrinkled brows. His Virgin Mary was modeled on a drowned prostitute he supposedly had pulled from the Tiber River. This was scandalous. The church wanted aspirational heavenly figures. Caravaggio gave them humanity in all its gritty, flawed reality. He argued that the divine could be found in the ordinary, that a holy moment was not something that happened long ago to people who were unlike us, but something that could happen right here, right now, to anyone. This brings us to a small church in Rome, San Luigi dei Francesi, and the commission that would cement his fame forever, the life of Saint Matthew. Let's look at one of these masterpieces, The Calling of Saint Matthew. Look at this scene. It's not set in ancient Judea. It's set in a dark, grimy Roman tax office. Matthew and his cronies are counting money, dressed in the contemporary fashion of Caravaggio's day. They are hunched over their coins, absorbed in their worldly business. Then, on the right, entering from the shadows, are Christ and Saint Peter. Christ is barely visible, almost entirely cloaked in darkness, but his hand, a direct quote of Adam's hand from Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling, extends into the light, pointing. And what does that light do? It doesn't illuminate the whole room. It falls directly on Matthew, the sinner, the tax collector. It is the light of divine calling, a moment of profound, life-altering epiphany. But Matthew's reaction is everything. He points to himself in disbelief. The men next to him are either oblivious, still focused on their money, or just beginning to turn, confused. Caravaggio has captured the precise, split-second moment a man's life is changed forever. He shows us that a holy calling isn't a gentle whisper. It is a sudden, shocking intrusion of the divine into the mundane world. This was revolutionary. It made faith feel immediate, real, and accessible. But as his fame grew, so did his notoriety. The same passion that fueled his art also fueled his temper. He was arrogant, quick to anger, and lived by his own rules. Court records from the time paint a picture of a man constantly in trouble. He was sued for libel, arrested for carrying a sword without a permit, and got into countless brawls over women, debts, or perceived insults. He once threw a plate of hot artichokes at a waiter because he felt they weren't cooked properly. This life of violence and darkness inevitably bled onto his canvases. His paintings grew darker, more violent. He painted beheadings, martyrdoms, and moments of extreme suffering with a brutal, unflinching realism. He wasn't just painting stories, he was painting his own inner turmoil. Then came the year 1606, the point of no return. After a heated argument over a tennis match and a long-standing feud, Caravaggio fought a duel with a man named Ranuccio Tomassoni. It was a messy, brutal street fight. Caravaggio was wounded, but Tomassoni was killed. Suddenly, the most famous painter in Rome was a fugitive with a death sentence on his head. He fled south to Naples, then to the island of Malta. For a moment, it seemed he might find redemption. In Malta, he painted for the Knights of St. John and was so well regarded that they made him a Knight of the Order. It was a staggering honor for a man of his common birth, let alone a convicted killer. But Caravaggio could not escape himself. He got into another violent brawl, this time with a Mercy, and was imprisoned, stripped of his identity, and had to escape the island in the dead of night. His final years were a frantic race against time, a desperate flight through Sicily and back to Naples, all while painting some of his most profound and haunting works. He was a man haunted by his past, and you can see it in his art. Consider one of his last paintings, David, with the head of Goliath. In this painting, David isn't a triumphant hero. He looks down at the severed head of his enemy with an expression of profound sadness and compassion. And the head of Goliath? It is Caravaggio's own self-portrait. His face is a mask of agony, his mouth open in a silent scream. This is not a celebration of victory. It is a raw, desperate confession. He is both the victor and the vanquished, the agent of death and its victim. The painting is a plea for mercy, a self-condemnation from a man who sees the monster in himself. His end was as tragic and mysterious as his life. In 1610, by the time he was released, his ship, with all his belongings, had sailed He frantically tried to catch it, running along the hot, malaria-infested coastline in the blistering July sun. He never made it. He collapsed on the beach at Porto Ercole, overcome by fever, and died alone, just days before the pardon he so desperately sought was officially granted. He was only 38 years old. So what can we, living centuries later, take from this world? Caravaggio's story is powerful and often uncomfortable in the nature. We all have moments of grace, moments of pain. We are capable of forgiving transcendent beauty and of committing terrible mistakes. Caravaggio's genius is not that he was a perfect man, but that he was an honest one. He refused to paint a sanitized version of the world or of himself. He dragged the sacred down into the dirt and showed how the divine could illuminate the darkest corners of human experience. He teaches us not to hide from our shadows, but to face them, to acknowledge our flaws, our anger, our humanity, and to understand that it is precisely in this messy, imperfect reality that moments of true grace and profound beauty can be found. He shows us that our greatest art, our greatest contributions, may not come in spite of our flaws, but directly because of them. So live honestly. Don't be afraid of your own darkness, for it is often the very thing that makes your light shine so brightly.